Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another backstage interview at the Metals Investor Forum. I have a newcomer to the backstage, the virtual backstage, of course, at the Metals Investor Forum. This is Andrew from Cariboo Gold. Thanks for joining me back here, Andrew. I keep saying back here as though we're actually like behind a curtain or something.
It's my pleasure to step back behind the curtain.
I think one interesting thing with Karus is obviously that you're not actually a listed company right now. So if people were interested in your story when they heard your presentation at the conference, then they can't actually buy the stock yet. But I think so I'm sure you get a lot of questioning like, well, what's happening? What are you doing? Like when does it start? But actually, I know from many conversations with you that there's a lot of moving parts right now, that you're very busy. So let's just talk about that a bit. Like, what are you doing on a day-to-day basis right now? Why don't I just leave the field a little open there? What are you doing right now?
Yeah, so on the regulatory side and the moving towards listing, we're active. The key elements that we have to deal with to list is we have to resubmit a technical report. The exchange has already reviewed it.
Okay.
And we've gone through the process of updating it with some current information that we released over the last couple of months. So we need to resubmit that, but it's a formality.
Okay.
They've already gone through a review, and there was minimal, feedback or requirements to make changes. We need to provide our updated financials for year end. Those are complete. The final element for what we need to do is really having a discussion on, what does this company look like pro forma? We do need to raise money. As we pointed out, we've outlined an approximately $10 million program. We've got a little over 3 million in the treasury. So there's a gap there that needs to be filled. And so, we're working on the financing side of it. We're looking at reaching out to existing investors, potentially new investors, and having conversations with them and generating interest. But that will feed into the discussion about what the company looks like pro forma. Through that whole process, there's a discussion about price discovery. Where is Karus going to debut, at what share price? And that's really what we're goal seeking towards. So that's going on in the background. Once we have visibility on that, and once we feel comfortable, well, then that's the last piece for the submission is providing the regulators an idea of what that looks like. And then we submit our documentation, and away we go. Right. So that's kind of the going public and financing discussion that's taking place in the company. Of course, we're waiting for permits to be approved. We've been in discussion with regulators on an ongoing basis. We're taking a proactive approach towards it. One of the things that we did proactively is step in and do a wildlife report to to strengthen our permitting process, to give the regulators an understanding of what we think the wildlife sensitivities are, where we're going to be working, and we'll follow through on that discussion. I'd very much like Karus to be proactive. So instead of waiting for the issue to arise and have to react to it, let's get working on it now, because it is an important part of de-risking a company. We're taking the same approach with First Nations. I mean, one of the things that I did immediately stepping in early March was immediately start engagement and proactively begin reaching out to the First Nations that we will impact. We are working on their territorial lands. And so, it benefits the company, it benefits relationships, it benefits shareholders if we take a proactive approach towards engagement right out of the gate. We're getting pretty close to signing our first protocol agreement, which is an important step. And we'll follow that through with all the other First Nations that we're engaged with, and that's something that we want to do. We want to build a strong relationship with the people that own the land.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a lot going on, really. And I think it's often the case that that junior explorers can seem, when they're not actively drilling, which for a lot of explorers happens for long periods of time every year, whether for lots of different reasons, it can seem like nothing's happening in those periods of times. But a lot of the time there is a huge amount going on, because there's so many pieces of the puzzle when it comes to doing junior exploration. And the financing process that you describe, or the approach to financing process that you described, is a good example of that. Oftentimes we see a financing announcement and like 2 days later it's closed, or sometimes it's just an announcement of a closed financing. And it seems like these things just happen, but actually, like you say, there's these long conversations ahead of time with current investors and potential investors, and price discovery and brokers, and how it's all going to work. And everyone's keen for all those answers, and it's hard to settle in on them, I'm sure.
Yeah, trust me. I mean, I've also got a whole technical team that's chomping at the bit to get on the ground, right? So, and there's the logistics of actually mobilizing 3 drill rigs and a whole bunch of people onto a property, and making sure that we spend money wisely and we spend it efficiently. So yeah, there's that whole side of the business. Fortunately, I've got good help in that regard. I've got a great technical team that is doing a lot of that heavy lifting on their own. They're very capable. And in fact, I just finished having lunch with them, and 2 of them were up doing preliminary sort of logistics and doing some field mapping last week. So getting a sense of what they're up against for the remainder of the summer.
Well, hopefully next time we chat, instead of talking about all the things that you're doing under the surface, we can talk about things that are a little bit more obvious, like drilling the exciting gold project that this whole company is sort of based on, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. Soon.
You'll get there. There's enough people pushing you there that you won't have a choice.
Yeah, we'll start that work in June, in early June. We'll start our program. We have the cash and the resources available currently to begin the program. So we'll start ramping up, and we'll start getting some of that key work completed. Yeah, so it's going to be an exceptionally exciting summer, right?
Fantastic. Well, thanks for taking the time, and we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, sounds good. And thank you very much.